Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Joyce Parker, and I'm the Director of Citizens for a Better Greenville in Greenville, Mississippi. We are so happy to be here as a member of National Dignity in Schools campaign to talk about Mississippi's implementation of the Every Student Succeed Act, or ESSA. We are here because we care deeply about ensuring the success of Mississippi students and schools. However, this important goal cannot happen without the engagement and involvement of those who know Mississippi schools best, the state's parents, teachers, students, and other community stakeholders. Although community stakeholders often know best how to improve the schools in their communities, they are often not given the opportunity to play an active role in the development of education policies and practices. While we are pleased with the efforts that Mississippi is making so far to engage community stakeholders, we strongly urge Mississippi to continue to ensure meaningful engagement by using multiple methods for gathering feedback and using this feedback to inform revisions to the final state plan before its submission to the Department of Education, which ESSA requires. We want the public to know that before the plan is submitted to the United States Department of Education on September the 18th, they have the right to offer their recommendations on this plan. Mississippi will be offering 3 opportunities for community to become engaged. On the 26th of June, they will be at Hattiesburg. On the 27th of June, they will be in Jackson, and on the 29th, they will be in Oxford. So if you are close to any of these areas, please find your way to figure out how you can be engaged in improving the quality of education across the state, but specifically in your community.
Rachel Mays, Executive Director of Southern Echo. We are pleased that Mississippi Department of Education will be holding community forums to help facilitate that process. And we encourage parents and community members to participate in those forums and submit their recommendations to the state plan once it's posted to the public comment on MDE's website. Earlier today, our coalition sent a letter to the State Education Department of State Board Education, which provides several recommendations for the state plan. We would like to take a moment to talk about some of those recommendations. We first encourage Mississippi to include school climate and safety as an indicator of school quality. According to the most recent data, 51,030 Mississippi students experienced 1 or more out-of-school suspensions, and Black students were disproportionately impacted. 47.9% of the students who received out-of-school suspension were Black boys. And nationally, Black girls are 6 times more likely to be suspended or expelled than white girls. Such racial disparities exist in Mississippi and nationwide, even though there is no evidence that Black students misbehave more than their white peers. We also recommend targeting additional supports that can address school climate issues and reduce the use of practices that push students out of the classroom to districts most in need of such resources. This could include funding for restorative justice practices and school-based mental health services and professional development for teachers. MDE should also require districts to consider school climate in the needs assessments for schools identified for comprehensive support and improvement.
Hi, I'm Janice Harper, Community Organizer with the Nolly Jenkins Family Center. We believe that Mississippi Department of Education has so far done a sound job outlining strategies for supporting districts as they look to address teacher shortages and improve teacher quality. We urged our state to ensure that they target funding and supports such as teacher training and technical assistance related to recruiting and retaining quality teachers to low-performing schools and districts with the worst teacher shortages. Example, focus schools, achievement school districts, and consolidated schools. As a member of the Mississippi Teacher Effectiveness Working Group, which included representatives from the Nolly Jenkins Family Center, Citizens for a Better Greenville, the Mississippi Delta Catalyst Roundtable, and Southern Echo, we're pleased to see many of our recommendations have been included in the Mississippi Consolidated Plan as it relates to teacher effectiveness. We know that students fail to meet academic benchmarks when they are not taught by highly qualified teachers who are experienced and certified in their subject area. The Mississippi Department of Education has included our recommendations, and some of those examples are to increase the rigor of educator preparation program, to develop strategies to address the teacher shortages, like grow your own programs, support new teachers by improving induction and mentoring programs, and creating evaluation systems that provide feedback for professional growth. We are particularly also pleased to see community college partnerships mentioned as a source of potential teachers. Innovative programs such as the 2+2 program in Hinds County College and Delta State are just some examples of the collaborative programs in MDE can encourage so that we can attract minority students from our communities to become teachers. We are also pleased to see an emphasis being placed on cultural responsiveness at the educator facility level. The goal to increase facility understanding and use of culturally responsive pedagogy while improving education graduate skills and using culturally responsive practices will also improve students' results in many areas of the state. Of course, a state plan is only as good as the implementation of the plan. Our working group is committed to monitoring the process of the stated goals in the plan, as well as communicating the process of the education stakeholders in our communities. Lastly, we are also committed to helping our local legislators understand the role that Every Student Succeeds Act has in both funding and school improvement in Mississippi. We also will continue monitoring our state legislators to ensure that they are making the right decisions for our children to be successful.
Good afternoon. My name is Marilyn Young. I'm the Education Director for Southern Echo and Tunica Teens in Action. And we're here also in support of the Dignity in School campaign, which is our national piece where we present and ask that you do not push students out of school. Today we attended the Mississippi State Board of Education meeting where the ESSA implementation plan was approved for its preliminary process. We also want to ask that Mississippi should also support the districts in resource inequity. We heard this morning inside of the meeting where the set-aside amount of money from the federal government will not be enough to even cover 20 school districts that are in the failing category. So we know that that's not going to be enough. We would hope that and ask MDE to look for other resources through other philanthropy and different things to be able to help accommodate some of those shortages inside of those most depressed districts. These are just a few of the ways we believe Mississippi work with the people of the great state to ensure that the children have a bright future. As part of the Dignity in School Coalition, we have been monitoring and participating in the advisory committee meetings. We have attended the working group meetings, and I want to say Dr. Wright has been very, very open and transparent with us. She's been very helpful, and Dr. Oakley, who's in charge of the department, has been extremely great at making sure the recommendations that we put forward will go forward, and we would hope that we can continue to offer input inside this next process as it gets ready to go out for public comments.
Good afternoon. My name is Marika Pfefferkorn. I came from Mississippi to attend the Mississippi State Board of Education meeting today. The work here in Mississippi is part of a national effort that is taking place across the country and led by our Dignity in Schools campaign. We want to ensure that state departments of education educate, engage, and include communities in fashioning strategic Every Student Succeeds Act state plans that emphasize improved school climates and produce stronger measures of accountability that produce increased academic outcomes for students that are traditionally pushed out of schools and out of formal school educational systems. Our goal is to shift the educational trajectory, especially for African American boys and girls who have been disproportionately impacted by antiquated and outdated educational practices. So just know that Minnesota stands with the Mississippi delegation of the Dignity in Schools campaign. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good afternoon. My name is Elizabeth Olson. I'm the Senior Policy Associate for the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. LDF has been working closely with the Dignity in Schools campaign to support local advocates here in Mississippi and across the country as they work with education officials in their states to craft strong state plans that ensure that all students have the opportunity to succeed. All students succeed in positive learning environments. State education officials have an opportunity to improve Mississippi schools by prioritizing school climate in the state's plan. Parents and community members can help shape the future of education in Mississippi and across the country by telling state officials to include strategies for creating positive school climates that keep students in the classroom and learning in state education plans. We'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have for us.
When you say school climate, do you mean what else do you mean beyond suspension and expulsion? And I'm sorry, I know I walked down halfway through.
No problem. So positive school climate is a climate where students feel physically and emotionally safe. There's mutual respect between students and teachers, and students aren't in fear of being punished with unfair discipline practices that target some student subgroups over others. So we know that Black students in Mississippi are disproportionately impacted by these discipline practices that push students out of school and into the justice system.
And when we think about accountability, there are absolutely metrics and measures that we can use for school climate to tell us if we're being effective and successful. So we encourage states to take advantage of the tools that already exist around how to measure accountability in school climate. From the moment you walk into a building, you can feel it, but you can also evaluate it.
And what would be some examples of those measures?
So you can see if a teacher walking into a classroom and a teacher is sitting down at a desk and the students are not engaged or they're not looking around, you can see that there might not be a significant relationship. The relationship in the hallways, the referrals to the office, it can be how parents are engaging at the school, it can be what is the turnaround for staff, how long do they stay within a building, is the principal there and has he been there for they or she or he has been there for a significant time. These are all indicators to let us know what is actually happening on the ground that ultimately impacts the academics in the schools. We have to get the groundwork in place for us to be successful with the academics.
And one of the things that the State Department mentioned, and you heard them say, they really are looking at chronic absenteeism. It's beyond, like you're saying, it's not just suspensions and expulsions. For Black boys and girls, that does seem to be the red flag. But we need to know what the root causes are. And because of ESSA looking at poverty and the impacts and the root causes that come along with that, the social emotional healing that has to go on, we've got to look at why children are not being successful in school. And I think school climate is something that districts are already looking at, and I think we just don't want them to be afraid and count that out.
Is there an example of a state or a district that you would say does a good job of measuring school climate?
So the state of California has a very strong school climate measure that a lot of the states across the country, including the Council of Chief State Schools Officers, have looked at to be the gold standard, I guess I would say.
So in addition to urging states to use discipline data as a measure of school quality, we're also asking them to use school climate surveys, and both of those components are included in California's system, and other states we see moving in the positive direction toward that goal as well. So school climate surveys where students have the opportunity to express how they feel about the learning environment, as well as hard data on suspensions, expulsions, school-based arrests.
Is there a student that would like to give their definition of school climate? There's a lot of work to be done. No comment.
But I think also this board made it very clear today that they don't want the State Department to look at surface answers or things that have already been done or the status quo. The questions that they asked today really was demanding the Department of Ed to take a deeper look at what's going on, but also deal with the issues around capacity, whether it's on the state level or whether it's on the academic and local level.
You all mentioned that California has a really good way of measuring school climate. I know under ESSA that states do have the option to use school climate measurements as their fifth non-academic indicator. Have you all seen any states say that they're going to do that in their draft plans, or?
Yep, so California is one state that we've heard is moving in that direction in terms of incorporating school climate in their accountability systems. Right now there's a consortium of school districts that are already doing that, and statewide that looks like that is going to expand under ESSA. And then we have also seen other states. Tennessee is incorporating suspensions within their accountability system in a limited way. We would push that state to go further as well. But we have seen in draft plans schools mention the use of school climate indicators in their accountability systems, and they might not be very specific in terms of how they are going to measure that indicator, which we would want to know how that's going to be measured to make sure it's an effective measure of school quality, but we have seen states take positive steps in that direction.
And even though Mississippi didn't choose that as one of the indicators, as they were doing the listening tours, that was some of the things that we participated in, all 16 of them, and we made it a point to put the school climate constantly back inside of there, even though it wasn't one of the indicators. We know that there's another way you could get to that piece.
My sort of next question is once schools have this data, how are they sort of empowered to have changes? I know some districts in Mississippi have had trouble adjusting to the PBIS, method because they kind of haven't had those proper supports in place. So it's kind of like, once you get the indication of the data, like maybe we do have a disproportionate number of minority students that are suspended in the system. How are the schools empowered of where to, go from there and implement change?
Well, when you talk about real engagement, you are talking about the learning curve. Many of us are able to articulate at the range that we are because we've been inside the room, we've been inside the conversations, and once again, we applaud our state for allowing that to work. So I think for the implementation, we still got to be at the table. We've got to hear how it rolls out, because what you tend to hear is what people think won't work and why they think it won't work, but also you get the creative piece of folks from the community saying, oh yeah, well we can do that, So I think it's a learning curve here, this whole piece around engagement, it doesn't end today, it really begins today.
I think another critical piece of the implementation is to make sure that there's full funding for it so the professional development can occur and that folks do not feel isolated as they apply the new strategies.
And one of the things that we've asked NDE to do through the P16 Community Engagement Council, we feel like as incorporating that as part of the ESSA plan is a really good way for Mississippi to move that process, because that engages all phases of the community, from your business, your community-based folks, your clergy, and so you get a wide range of people in support of that, and those councils set up inside of those communities can help do a lot of the extra work, the fundraising and other things that can't be done inside of the school district, because we don't want to burden the school with any more obligation. But the councils can do things that normally would not be done inside of that process. And the P16 is the Community Engagement Councils that were put in place from the Children First Act of 2009 that Mississippi implements, and we have been lifting that piece up as we've been going through this process with ESSA.
And the empowering piece that you asked about, it really comes into play when you talk about the questions today that were asked. How come districts are not applying for the SIG grant? Or why aren't districts, asking for help? And much of that is capacity questions. And we're saying, as community folks, we are the liaison between the State Department and our school districts. In so many cases, we are the ones that are saying, okay, State Department, what can we do? We know your limited capacity, we know our district's limited capacity. So when you become a real partner, the empowerment comes along with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.